My parents actually laughed when I told them I was buying a house. They said I'd never match my brother. But they didn't know I had been planning this in silence for years. Before I go on, hit that subscribe button and share this. You won't believe what happened next. I grew up in the shadow of my older brother. Everyone telling me he was the star, the golden child, the one who would succeed. I was always the quiet one, dismissed, overlooked, told I wasn't ambitious enough, that I'd never make anything of myself. Every family dinner, every holiday, I watched them cheer for him, laugh at his jokes, and ignore me. But I never let them see my frustration. I smiled, nodded, and worked silently on something huge. The moment I signed the papers for my $5.2 million house, I couldn't wait to see their faces. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I knew the look of shock would be unforgettable. They never expected Sutton, the quiet, underestimated kid, to pull off something this big. And the crazy part? They didn't even know I had been building this empire while they were busy celebrating my brother's achievements. Growing up, my life felt like I was constantly being compared to my brother, Jake. He was the one my parents bragged about, straight A's, varsity athlete, everyone's favorite. Meanwhile, I, Sutton, was quietly scraping by, doing well enough but never good enough to earn more than a passing glance. At school, teachers praised him, friends asked him for advice, and at home, even my grandparents seemed to favor him. I was always told, Sutton, you're sweet, but Jake will handle the big things. Those words stung more than they should have, but I never let it break me. Every night, after everyone went to bed, I poured myself into work, side projects, online businesses, investments. I learned to be smart with money, to understand real estate, to spot opportunities my family thought were too complicated for me. They assumed I was just drifting, wasting time, but I was quietly building something huge, piece by piece. I kept every success hidden. Not out of fear, but because I wanted the shock to be absolute. I wanted them to realize how wrong they'd been. Even my brother had no idea. He thought I was still struggling, that I'd never take risks or make moves that mattered. The more they laughed, the more determined I became. I remember nights staying up till 2 a.m., analyzing markets, researching neighborhoods, making offers, negotiating deals. All in silence. No one checked on me. No one believed in me, but that was exactly the fuel I needed. Then came the moment I found the perfect property, a $5.2 million house in a neighborhood even my parents dreamed of living in. The more they had doubted me, the more determined I became. I knew if I could pull this off, it wouldn't just be a house, it would be proof. Proof that Sutton, the overlooked kid, could beat Jake at his own game. I signed the papers quietly, heart racing, thinking about their reactions. The next family gathering was approaching. I could already imagine my father's smug grin, my mother's proud nod for Jake, and the murmurs of, Sutton? What has he done lately? They had no idea the surprise waiting for them. I had planned everything meticulously, timing, presentation. The moment they'd realize this wasn't just a house, it was a statement. And yet, even as I prepared, a tiny thrill of fear ran through me. What if they laughed? What if they dismissed it again? That tension made the reveal even sweeter in my mind. The day of the reveal arrived, and I played it perfectly. My parents invited me over for dinner, probably thinking I'd just update them about some minor life stuff, maybe a raise at work or a small investment. I walked in, calm, smiling, carrying nothing but myself, while inside I was buzzing with anticipation. My brother, Jake, was there too, clearly expecting me to be quiet, maybe fumble through a few sentences about how I was catching up to him. Little did he know, the entire game had changed. I started casually, talking about work, tossing in a few vague mentions of exciting projects I'd been managing. Their attention drifted slightly. They were used to dismissing me, but I could feel it building. Then, as dessert was being served, I slid my phone across the table with the property listing displayed on the screen. Guess who just bought this? I said, keeping my tone light, almost teasing. My parents looked down, eyes widening. Jake leaned in, thinking it was some kind of joke. But as he read the details, the price, the neighborhood, the luxury features, his smile froze. My mother's jaw dropped. My father's face turned red, and Jake's confident smirk vanished entirely. Sutton? This is, how? My father stammered. I shrugged casually, sipping my wine, letting the silence stretch. I guess all those nights you said I'd never match Jake finally worked out, I said softly, each word deliberate, making them feel the weight of every doubt they had cast on me. I could see the disbelief in their eyes, the tiny cracks forming in their perfect image of Jake's superiority. Jake tried to laugh it off, but it came out forced. Wait, you did all this? Alone? He asked, still in shock. Yep. Every step, I replied. While everyone was too busy cheering for you, I was quietly building something bigger. The room was heavy with tension. The realization hit them like a punch. They had completely underestimated me, and the kid they ignored, mocked. And dismissed was now untouchable in a way they couldn't ignore. Even as I felt satisfaction, I kept calm. I didn't need to yell or boast. Every look, every gasp, every whispered, "How?" was my victory. And I knew this was only the beginning. This reaction was perfect, but the story wasn't over yet. There was one more twist I had been keeping under wraps. One that would leave them speechless in a way no dinner conversation ever could. After the initial shock faded, I leaned back, letting them soak in the reality. My father opened his mouth, probably to say something smug about how Jake still had more connections or influence, but I interrupted with a calm smile. "Actually, there's one more thing," I said, pulling up a second document, this time a full portfolio showing my other investments, business accounts, and a few properties I'd quietly acquired over the past 3 years. Their eyes widened further, mouths slightly open. You own all this?" my mother whispered. I nodded, keeping my voice steady. "Yes. Every bit of it, without borrowing a penny from anyone. While you were busy assuming I'd fail, I built an empire quietly, piece by piece. And yes, this $5.2 million house? Just the start." Jake finally stammered, "But how? Why didn't you tell anyone?" I smiled faintly. "Because I wanted the reaction. I wanted you to understand exactly what it feels like to be underestimated, dismissed, and mocked. Do you feel it now?" The silence in the room was deafening. My parents shifted uncomfortably, realizing for the first time how wrong they had been all these years. Then came the final twist. They assumed this was just about money or status. But it wasn't. I looked at them calmly and said, "This isn't revenge. This is proof, to myself, that I'm capable. And it's also a reminder that underestimating someone quietly working on their dreams is the biggest mistake you can make." They couldn't argue. There was no comeback. The satisfaction wasn't just in the money, it was in the realization that I had outgrown their narrow expectations entirely. Jake sat there, stunned, his confidence shattered. My parents looked at each other, speechless, and I felt a sense of peace wash over me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the shadow. I was Sutton, the one they ignored, the one they laughed at, the one who proved that determination and silent effort could outperform favoritism and arrogance. And in that moment, I knew my life had truly changed forever. But the real power wasn't the house, or the money, it was the respect they could no longer deny. After that dinner, things didn't go back to the way they were, and that was exactly how I wanted it. My parents stopped underestimating me, and Jake, well, he stopped bragging around me. He still tried, of course, but every time he opened his mouth, I could see the hesitation, the awareness that I wasn't the same kid they had overlooked. I moved into my $5.2 million house a few weeks later, and it felt surreal. Every corner, every room, every view reminded me of how far I had come, not just in wealth, but in confidence and self-respect. The quiet planning, the late nights, the long years of building something without recognition. It all mattered now. The house wasn't just a home. It was a statement. A reminder that being underestimated isn't failure, it's fuel. Sometimes, I still think about that dinner. The looks on their faces, the shock, the disbelief. It still makes me smile. But more importantly, I feel empowered, free from the shadows of comparison. I realize that success isn't just about proving others wrong, it's about proving yourself right. And that's the twist they never expected. While they thought they were shaping my life, I was quietly shaping my destiny. I didn't buy the house to one-up my brother or punish my parents. I did it to show myself that Sutton, quiet, patient, underestimated Sutton, could rise, thrive, and finally step out of the shadow with pride. In the end, the lesson is simple: you don't need anyone's approval to succeed. You just need determination, patience, and the courage to build your own path. And when you do, the shock on their faces is just the icing on the cake.